In this video, I want to talk about another feature of Vim, which is called recursive macros. These are macros that call themselves or other macros when they're running. Recursion is not something that people understand directly, and it might take a little bit of time for you to really understand what's going on here. But trust me, once you get the hang of it, you'll never want to go back. So I've provided an example text here. There's maybe a file you imported from somewhere else. And I want to show you how Vim macros, specifically recursive macros, can be useful in this context. So this could be, for example, keys and values. Let's say this is name and this is age. And then there's a blank line, another name, another age, and so on and so forth. Now you want to prepare it for your programming, such as in Python, you want to make it a dictionary so you can use it. The way you do it is, for example, you start a curly bracket, you put the name inside quotations, you bring the age next to it, and then you put a comma. And then you do the same thing for the next name and the next age and so on and so forth. And once you're done with all of this, you close the bracket. All right, if you had like 5 names, maybe you would just do it manually. But oftentimes you're dealing with like tens or hundreds or thousands of names and ages and different things, and you want to automate that. Of course, you can use programming. For example, Python supports different sorts of regex or regex, as I say it, and you can use that to convert whatever file you have into something that Python can read. However, I think that's overkill. I think if your text editor, such as Vim, supports this kind of operation, you might as well use that. All right, let me undo this thing. And let me show you how we can use Vim macros to do this. The first thing you want to make sure of when you want to record a recursive macro in Vim is make sure that the macro is already empty, because you want to call itself when you're defining it. To see whether there is something in a macro or not, you can basically look at your register, and you see that, for example, the macro I want to record, I want to put it in queue, and I see that queue is already occupied with something. Like this macro here basically appends these lines to each other. All right, what I would like to do is clear whatever macro is inside queue. And the way you do that in Vim is you record an empty macro over it. So I say QQ and then Q. So now Q is empty. You don't see the macro Q here anymore. All right, cool. So what do we do now? What we want to do is record a new macro in Q. And first thing you gotta do in macros, a lot of times it's easy to miss, but it basically messes up with your macro. You have to, if you need to, you have to always go to the beginning of the line. All right. So now that we're at the beginning of the line, what do we do now? We want to put this name inside quotations like this. But see, this is not actually correct, because different names have different lengths. Like B could be 10 letters, but whereas A is 5 letters, so the quotation wouldn't work on different names. Instead, what you want to do is you want to use a Vim plugin, which is called Vim Surround. Vim Surround takes whatever you have, for example, a word or a letter, and surrounds it with whatever you want it to. For example, parentheses, brackets, quotations, tags, and different things. In this case, I would like to surround whatever name appears here with quotations. There are actually 2 ways to use Vim Surround. One of them is to use VIW to select that word, and then use Shift and S so that we know we're going to do Vim Surround stuff on it, and then do quotation. And if you do that on all of these lines, then you're sure that it's going to select the word, and then it's going to put the quotation around it, no matter how many letters there are in that word. Another way to use Vim Surround is to call it first, like ys. Okay, you can see that if this is Vim Surround. Then I want to call it on IW, which is inside the word that I see here. And finally, see it's waiting for me to type something. I want to say this is supposed to be a quotation. All right, whichever method you use, now we have quotation around the names. And then I want to basically append this line next to this one because that's how Python dictionaries usually are made. So Shift and J takes this line, brings it up, and then I would like to put a comma at the end of it. So I press Shift and A, go to the end of the line in insert mode, and then comma. All right, cool. And then maybe I would like to remove these blank lines because I want to prettify my text or whatever. So what I would do is I DD that. All right. Now at this point, the first line is finished. It's done. Now we want to tell Vim, hey Vim, I'm recording a macro and the first line is done. Now call it on whatever line there is left. All right. And so what you do is you call your macro, the macro that you're already recording, inside itself. And the way you do that is the way you call any macro. You press @Q. All right. So now your macro is finished. What you got to do at this point is just basically quit recording your macro. And let's see what happens now. We have a macro in Q. And yeah, look at all these things. Because it recorded all the things that we did. First, I used VISW, and then I used another method to call Vim Surround. In reality, you don't need to do all these things. In reality, your macro would be simpler. All right, if we call it now, if we call the macro now, it's not going to work. Why? What did go wrong? So the macro, if you look at it, is going to the beginning of the line, put it in insert mode, blah, 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 and then probably there is something going on that messes with your macro. Another way to circumvent this problem, let me try it on the first line. Yeah, you see that this is not working properly. It's putting extra quotations. The way to fix this problem is record this macro without these junks that we typed for no reason. So let's clear the macro and record this macro again. Go to the beginning of the line, VIW, SW, and quotation, all right? And then you want to append this thing and then put it here, and then you want to do this thing, and then you want to call itself, and that's it, okay? Now if you do run the macro, it's gonna work properly, all right? And notice that sometimes you might want to say, hey, you know what, this looks pretty and all, but what if they look like this? Can I also append all these lines next to each other? Obviously, you can just use Shift and J, but you can also run another macro that appends all these lines. Let me just, for the sake of it, let's just say I want to record a new macro and I want to put in W. What it does is it just presses Shift and J. All right, and then I quit, and then I call W, and you can just press dot to repeat whatever you did. Now, if you can repeat this thing as many times as you want, so that all these lines are next to each other. And then, of course, you can remove the last comma. Now, this is almost a dictionary, but we have to put the curly brackets around it. Remember, we can just use Vim Surround again. We can use Shift and V to select the whole line, and Shift and S to say, hey, we're going to do something around this thing, and then do Vim Surround. Now it's going to put the surroundings and different lines because maybe I'm using some formatting plugin. Okay, but this is basically a dictionary in Python right now. Again, another way to do this would be to say ys, and in this case, I would like to say s and basically curly brackets. So YSS means whatever I'm doing is for this whole line. Okay. Now notice there is a space, right, before and after the brackets. This is actually a feature of Vim Surround. If you use the opening, for example, curly brackets, to put the surrounding, it's going to put a space there. If not, it's going to just work normally. So for example, YSS, now I'm going to use the closing bracket. Now you can see that the space is not present anymore. There you go. And now you can say, hey, name, age, whatever you want to call it. This is now a dictionary in Python you can use. And anyway, so I just wanted to show you some features of Vim, specifically the recursive macro, and I hope that you learned something new today.